geoparks in Greece are undoubtedly defined as areas of special geological significance, rarity and beauty, and in combination with the nearest archaeological and historical sites, bio-communities and folklore nuclei, they constitute a unique power of attraction and action for alternative touring and geotourism. The Chelmos Vouraikos Geopark at its northern ends is flooded by the blue of the Corinthian Gulf, there on the sea bank terrace of Trapeza, and very close to the western ends, an idyllic geotope in the entity of the Vouraikos Gorge, intertwines mythology and neotectonic evolution. When the demigod Hercules, in love, tore the earth to pieces to run to Voura, the daughter of Eliki. In the hieroglyphics of the earth, in successive lakes and waterfalls, the waters of Vouraikos River, with a gigantic backdrop of the vertical conglomerate rocks, embracing the unique Diakofto-Kalavrita Cog Railway. The rhythms of nature are captivating and beautiful, endlessly leading us to the springs of Aroenios and Ladonas. Deep inside the magical cave of the lakes, in the aesthetic diversity of stalactites and stalagmites. But there is also the absolute serenity of another lake, an open-air one, that of Tsivlos. The imposing limestone outcrop of the castle of Oria, and a little lower down, a plateau. The tectonic depression of a mountain city, an emblem. The valuable historical presence of Kalavrita in the modern Greek development needs no introduction. And any visitor here becomes a pilgrim, and the need for world peace is pervasive. Further south, the ancient sanctuary of Artemis Hemeria in Lucy, and the view of the homonymous reveals the very special plateau of Lucy. But to the east, a three-dimensional grandeur fascinates you. The Aroenia Mountains, the brilliant Chelmos, with the ultra-modern infrastructure of the ski center. It looks like the ultimate winter sports paradise. And on the highest point, the Neraidorachi cliff, where the wisdom of Aristarchus wanders, transmuted in the stellar channel of the observatory, the eponymous telescope. And the inaccessible landforms continue in the horseshoe of the Styx ravine, the fearsome ocean of the Gigantomachy, where in its waters the Olympian gods, even the sun, swore. And diametrically opposite from Nereidalono, the grandeur of the high peak, with a panorama of the absolute horizon. But also Mount Pentelia, above the enclosed plateau of Phaneos, as well as the magic of the lake of Doxa Phaneos, many hundreds of meters lower. The completion of the geotour does not, of course, omit the Megaspile, the oldest monastery in Greece, as well as that of Aia Lavra, with the banner pierced by enemy bullets and torn by eternal time, a trademark of the Greek national uprising. The temporal geoevolution of our planet today inherits to us a panspermia of relief shapes with an endless variety. Quartzites that delimit in the human imagination castles and bastions, geometrically structured marbles, and beautiful pleated slates, seeming guardians of the deserted shore in Eremopolis. And the journey to the steep and vertical sides of the canyons may cause awe and respect for gigantisms. We may say nothing is hidden under the sun, but there are also the dark palaces of the earth, the caves full of mysteries and with beliefs. Rishtis, a cool ecosystem in every season, where water, plain trees, sages and oleanders constitute the ultimate habitat for nightingales and their subsequent musical feast. However, the primordial cultural presence of man is traced in the ancient quarries, which provide the carved stone so that cities, emblems, mighty cities can be built. Ancient Itanos, a naval power and commercial export port, with a historical route from the Minoan to the early Christian era. And 100 stadia further inland, the Eteocretans concentrate their power in the entity of ancient Pressos, a city with origins in the Neolithic era. An oasis of uniqueness and undoubtedly one of the most famous highlights is none other than the palm grove on the exotic beach of Vai. The geographical proximity to Africa justifies the existence of the natural colony of palm trees, the namesakes of the ancient philosopher and naturalist Theophrastus. And the wonderful world in the geopark of Cithea, endless. Multicolored, metamorphosed rocks. Architectural echoes of the Venetian rule. Sand dunes which are transformed according to the appetites of the god of the winds, Aeolus. Soft rocks of natural clay with therapeutic and cosmetic properties. And if all this excites the imagination, the climax of emotions and joy, they land on the island of Lefki, lost in the southern Cretan Sea. Early Minoans colonized the earthly paradise, established purple processing workshops, and maintained their cultural values high by constructing a stone theater. The earthly element may have primacy in the geopark, but the ocean is euphemistically here, with the sun arising from the palaces of Poseidon. Our planet lives in a regime of constant changes, and the processes that cause them are imprinted in the terrestrial environment. The composition of rocks, minerals, structures, metals, landforms imprint and testify to the geological past and the conditions where it was created. Geotopes are the books of the earth. So here, in the neighborhoods of Psiloritis, they narrate the seasons and periods in unique formations and rare colors. Mount Psiloritis, only 4 meters higher than the Lefka Ori, but the ancient super-knowledge made this small difference measurable and calculable, giving the peak of Crete all the divine gifts. From the small Mitato-like chapel of the Holy Cross summit, the aerial view associatively refers to the supervision of the mythical giant Talos. In the sacred cave of Ida, which was to develop into one of the most important centers of worship in the ancient world, Zeus, the first god in the hierarchy of Olympus, was born and raised according to myths. But also in the incomparable beauty of the caves of Sventonis in Zoniana and the Gerontospilios in Melidoni, massive stalagmites, huge stalactites, and their union centuries ago created columns with a light refracting and reflecting in calcium carbonate crystals. The petrified waves, the fairies' sanctuary, the palace. The Nida upland is the ultimate plateau, a green carpet with herbs and wildflowers. But somewhere further west, the plain of Eos opens up with the endemic red tulips, the diverse orchids, a real botanical paradise. In the mountains of the wider area, there are scattered the famous Mitata, idiosyncratic and impressive stone-built cylindrical structures, which serve as temporary dwellings by the Cretan mountaineer farmers. And undoubtedly the most beautiful, the little church dedicated to Saint Hyacinth, the Orthodox saint of lovers. And the religious monuments culminate in the historical importance of the Arkadi monastery, but also in the scattered, vibrant presence of Byzantine monasteries and churches of wonderful style and aesthetic wealth. However, the Minoan palaces, such as that of ancient Zominthos, on the road to the Idaion Andron, and the festival of nature has no end, in lakes, rivers, and seas. In northern Pindus, in Zagori, the mountains have their own world, due to a rare and multifaceted vertical dismemberment. Between the frozen waters of Voidomatis River and the white waters of Aos, breathtakingly high slopes rise, up to where the light rises at 2,500 meters. Findings of the presence of groups of hunter-gatherers in the upper Paleolithic period are located in the rock shelter of Klidi. The Vikos Gorge, a dreamy sight from the village of Vikos, from the balcony of ACHAIA-Paraskevi, north of the location of Beloi, or from Oxia. And nearby, the arrays of towers and slate columns give entity to the stone forest and the god-made rocks. Nowhere else does man get so much from his geo-environment. The kingdom of stone bridges is here. Single-arched, double-arched, a triple-arched, even arcades and piers, a unique architecture. The need for communication between villages gave birth to the paths, and the famous Vradetos staircase seems like a perfect example of a different way of life. In Mikro Papigo, life becomes one with the towers of Astraka, and the refuge on the neck introduces us to the paradise of Timfi Mount. In the metaphysical Axe, in the famous Dracolimni, and alpine newts dominating its waters. The adrenaline rushes on Aos and Voidomatis, and the crossings of the gorges make the hiker get lost, looking up at the skyline which crowns the vertical plains with light. To the north, the second-ranked mountain of the territory is called Smolikas, with its own Dracolimni being a habitat for the newts here. The churches and monasteries in the geopark are clustered in the natural environment, with Panagia Spiliotissa watching over Voidomatis and Panagia Stomiotissa standing tall in the Aos ravine. And Agia Paraskevi in Paleoseli refers to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, due to subsidence.